Welcome. You're listening to The Aligned Self, Conversations in Creating a Conscious and Abundant Life. This is Daniel Denovi. I'll be your guide and host. Let's see just where we can take this. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the conversation. First, I want to take a moment and thank you and let you know just how much I appreciate your listening. You see, I know that you could be doing anything else, listening to anything else. You don't have to be here, but part of you has deemed this valuable. It could have been your intuition. You might have stumbled upon his podcast or this particular episode, or you may be a long-term listener. Either way, I want you to know that I consider you my friend, a kindred spirit. We're both on this journey, this discovery, engaged in the epic adventure. And I want you to know that I take my role very seriously. And if you receive value from any of the episodes, whether it's this one or any of the other episodes that you've listened to, and you haven't yet reached out to let me know how it's impacted your life, I would appreciate a little communication. Go to yesdaniel.com and select the communication form, the contact form, and send me a message. It'll go right to my inbox. I'll be the one that reads it and I'll respond to it. Sometimes people try to communicate with me through social media. I don't always see those, or at least not in a timely manner. In fact, I just responded to a message that I had received about 6 months ago. Much apologies. I don't check my Instagram very often. The way Facebook, or let's say Meta, has set it up, receiving my messages through Instagram is somewhat cumbersome. It's awkward. But just suffice it to say that I'm open to your communication, open to hearing from you. Now, I might not be able to do that once all of you start sending me messages, but it's still relatively few of all the people that listen. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about intuition, receiving guidance from the universe. How does it occur? See, this was actually Robert that sent me a message. He says, I know you've answered this before, and I'm aware of the urgings and the sensations in my body. But are there other ways that the universe communicates to me? Well, the simple answer is yes, of course. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the different ways that God, Goddess, all that is, the universe, the infinite intelligence, the supermind, communicates to you. Now, as Robert said, first and foremost, on a basic level, the universe speaks to you. Your intuition speaks to you through sensations that typically occur along the midline of your body. When I say the midline, draw a line between your belly button and your throat, right up the middle of your body. So you'll have some kind of sensation along that midline, a pit in the stomach, butterflies, a tingling, a pulsing sensation, an expansiveness in your chest, or a contraction in your chest. They're typically simple binary sensations. Sometimes there's a closing off of the throat or a coughing. Say you'll say something and you're not in agreement really, and you'll cough behind it. You'll kind of choke on your words. That actually happened to me when I was saying my vows in my first marriage. Some other people got it in the audience. I didn't get it. I wasn't paying attention. But when I was saying my vows, I had a cough. I was choking on the words. Had I knew then what I knew now, I would have had a different understanding. In fact, I probably would not have gotten married had I been aware of the internal sensations that were coming up. But I didn't. I was doing the best I could with what I knew. Ultimately, it all worked out. I mean, the marriage did not work out, but her life worked out. My life worked out. It was actually the best thing we could have done at the time. It was part of our unfolding, part of our own spiritual journey. Now, if we put a label on these sensations in the body, this is the first place that a lot of people gain access to their intuition. It is clairsentient, being aware of the sensations in your body. Sometimes your intuition communicates through pain or discomfort. Now, this is where you have to exercise a certain amount of discernment, because it could be a symptom of something going on physically in your body, something health-wise. And so sometimes people ascribe spiritual meaning to actual physical sensations or physical ailments going on in the body. But with that said, virtually every ailment that comes up in the body has associated with it an energetic or a subconscious cause. And rather than go into all these different meanings here, I'm going to point you to a book that I have found very helpful over the years, and that was by Louise Hay, the founder of Hay House. You Can Heal Your Life. There's a whole section on subconscious causes of ailments in the body. Another indicator of your intuition speaking through your body is a knowing, just a solid knowing in your body, a knowing without knowing how you know. It's beyond reason, it's beyond explanation. You just know. Like back when I was 27 and I read the article in Psychology Today about neuro-linguistic programming, I had a knowing that I had to take this. I had to learn it. I used to subscribe to Psychology Today, and I don't even know if you can get it in a physical copy anymore or if it's only online. But I flipped the pages to the very back where they had the classified section, and I saw where there was NLP training. There was one in California, and there was one in Princeton, New Jersey. And the one in Princeton, New Jersey was a 21-day intensive. And it was more money than I thought it was going to be. But I just got out my credit card. I called and registered for the class. Then I had to figure out how to get the time off. You see, at the time, I was a courier for FedEx. I was working hourly. And where I was on the seniority level, I did not have vacation time available at the time of the training. So I had to put a special request in. There was no fear about it. I just did it. I said, I'm enrolled in this training. I need to get this time off. Well, you don't have the vacation time. I'll take it without pay. And they're like, oh, no, I don't know if we can approve that. I said, well, who do we have to ask? It turns out that we ran the request all the way up the chain to Fred Smith, CEO of FedEx. They reported back to me that Fred signed off on it, and he was totally behind my investment in personal growth. They did take the vacation time I had coming to me, which was a week, but then they gave me 2 weeks off without pay. And so it all worked out. But what's interesting is when I was in the middle of it, I never thought it wouldn't happen. I just knew I would get the time off. I don't know if you've heard my personal story before, but in 1988, I declared a revolution for my life. When I declared that revolution, when I wanted to shake things up, I was open to anything and everything. That's what really shifted my intuition. Now, I'm not suggesting you declare a revolution for your life because it changed everything. It ended my marriage. I changed locations. I did something different for work. My residence changed. Everything in my life was upset. Had I been attached to anything that was in my life, then it would have been really upsetting. But I was at a point in my life where I was open for anything. I had one of my students one time, after hearing my story, she declared a revolution for her life. Next thing you know, she's pregnant and her boyfriend has a nervous breakdown right after she had quit her corporate job. Talk about fast-tracking her personal growth. So when you declare a revolution, you're not just saying something, it's a big deal. So like I said earlier, where people start first opening up to their intuition is clairsentient, that inner knowing, that inner sensation. Next is clairaudience, hearing things, hearing words, hearing phrases. Now these are phrases in your head. Not everyone begins accessing that, but when we're first born, we don't see real well. And so we become attuned to the voices around us, the sounds, the sensations. And so there's a part of us that is very attuned to audio information, the tone of voice, the timbre. We can sense when something's wrong based on someone's voice. Some of us tune that out over the years. Some of us can access it fairly easily. So if you're a person that hears things, hears a word, hears a phrase in your head, or even sometimes a song, you'll hear a song playing in your head. There have been times in the process of waking up that between sleep and wakefulness, there's that kind of twilight of consciousness. Sometimes I'll have a song playing. And what's interesting is I know the song word for word. And if you were to ask me any other time, I couldn't tell you maybe more than 3 of the words. Another indicator that you're tuning into your clairaudience is that you'll hear like conversations off in the distance. Sometimes when you're falling asleep, sometimes you might hear a voice. Many times when I fall asleep, I'll hear a conversation off in the distance. 2 people talking. So it's garbled. You can't quite make it out, but you know it's a conversation. And then other times I've received communication that has been crystal clear. There is a particular tone and timbre to the voice that I now recognize as outside guidance or inner guidance. When I say outside, I mean non-local information. You see, there's local information which arises out of your own subconscious mind, your past programming, all your memories, your inner knowing, without actually having to access the Akashic records or the infinite mind, the universal intelligence. When you receive information outside of that, it's considered non-local. I typically refer to that whole process as your other than conscious mind. It's occurring or arriving outside of your consciousness and popping in to your conscious awareness. Another way people receive information is through clairvoyance, inner vision, or what they refer to as clear vision. You'll receive an image. Sometimes you'll be watching TV or you'll be talking to someone and you'll see movement out of the corner of your eye, kind of a shadowy movement. Someone walking across the room, you'll turn your head and there'll be nobody there. Sometimes I see our little late bunny, Albert, walk around the floor. Now, if this is a sense that's opening up for you, you may see something and you could swear that you see something, and then when you take a double look, it's not there anymore. Or sometimes when you look at someone, you'll see an image or another face superimposed over their face. You might be one of those people that also sees auras. How this may occur on the intuitive basis or the intuitive information download is you might see a little movie or a little vignette. Or let's say that you want to tune into otherworldly guidance, your guide or an angel, and you'll get an image. You'll get an image in your mind. And part of you says, oh, I'm just making this up. Well, go with it. Just pretend it's there. And the more you interact with it, it may change. It may morph over time to be more accurate depiction. But I should say this, that the universe, divine, God, Goddess, all that is, will meet you in your model of the world. They're not going to show up in a scary way. It's going to be a very familiar way. In fact, many times you'll mistake it for past thinking. Oh, I've had this thought before. Or this, it's just my imagination. It just seems like another thought that you've had on a continuous basis. Well, ding, ding, ding. Your intuition has been trying to communicate with you for a long time. And once you start listening, a lot of these sensations, a lot of these words, a lot of the communication is going to feel like it's just your mind, something you've thought over and over again over the years. And it's not that special. Well, just pretend that it is. And this is really huge. Pretend or assume, act as if you're psychic, act as if your intuition is active and you're tuning in. And this is intuitive guidance. The other thing I need to say about that is that your intuition will communicate with you in a matter-of-fact tone. You're not going to get, the 4-alarm fire bell where ding, 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 you have to leave. It's like all this fear coming through. No, that's some other thought process. Your intuition is essentially going to be rather mundane or sedate in its communication. No, don't go there. Time to leave. And if you don't heed that, it may amp up the sensation and you may get a feeling of being uncomfortable, uneasiness, the idea that something's wrong here. I need to leave. This isn't right. And it may be that you can't quite put your finger on it, and that goes back to knowing without knowing how you know. Now, here's a little personal story. Back in 2021, we had a big freeze here in Texas, and we had a pipe that burst and flooded out part of our house. And so we needed to vacate and go to a residence hotel. We picked one nearby that we thought was pretty good, and the insurance seemed to like it. Well, our first night there, my wife and I, she's psychic or intuitive also, and we had very vivid dreams. She had completely different dreams. She had dreams that she was being murdered or killed. And I had a dream that I was the serial killer. I was the murderer. And we both woke up, and it was very unsettling. Well, Skylar woke up. He's our autistic boy, and he's very psychic and intuitive also. Well, he woke up crying. He ended up throwing up. He said he doesn't like it. He doesn't want to stay here. So for my wife and I, when we recounted our dreams to each other, we just felt uncomfortable. And when Skylar had his response, we both said to each other, we got to go. Without hesitation, we packed everything up, left some things behind, but we moved back to the house. We actually had to leave because they were coming in to remodel the house. And so they hadn't quite started yet. We moved in back up to the upstairs, and we settled in for the night. And we just made different arrangements for a hotel the next day. Said we couldn't stay there. We can't stay there. We didn't really explain why. but we just knew that it was one of the eeriest feelings ever. Later, in going back and getting our stuff, I kept walking by this one room, and I got a sick feeling every time I walked by it. I knew that whatever was going on, the person on the other side of that door was not good. But none of that communication was scary or caused fear, just concern. It was off-putting, uncomfortable. And so these are the sensations that you want to begin paying attention to and asking. You see, these sensations, these urgings, these different kinesthetic sensations in your body. Kinesthetic essentially means of the body. Sensations are those feelings, those urgings, those impulses. When they come up, it begs a deeper question. What's this about? Is there something more I need to know or something I need to open up to? What am I not hearing? What am I not seeing? Now, the universe will communicate to you in other ways as well. Earlier, I said that the divine universal intelligence, God, Goddess, all that is, will meet you in your model of the world. So you're going to have experiences out in the world that seem synchronistic, that coincide with in some way, seem odd or weird or catch your attention. It might be hearing a song on the radio. Maybe you have a question that's been on your mind. And when you get in the car and turn it on, the first song that comes on answers your question or can be attributed or, pertains to your question. It could be the next song, or you may be just off driving and kind of, mindless about things, and this song pops on the radio and you'll hear one lyric, one phrase, and that becomes meaningful to you. Well, that's significant in regard to your intuition. You would not pay attention to it. It wouldn't be on your radar unless it was an answer for you. The other way the divine speaks to you, the universe speaks to you, is through conversations. Conversations with other people, sometimes strangers. Could be a homeless person, could be someone on the street, could be some other scenario, someone you bump into, and they'll say something off the cuff, and it rings true. You get a hit, it pops in your head, it rings true. Trust that. When that comes in and you have that recognition, that familiarity, like, oh, that makes sense, honor it. The more you honor it, you reinforce that rapport, reinforce that communication between your other than conscious mind or other than conscious aspect of your experience. There was a time in my life when I was really wondering whether or not I made a difference for other people. And it's not working out. I didn't have my life together. Could I make a difference for somebody else? And I was at the grocery store and somebody bumped into another person and wandered off the other way. And this person dropped all their stuff on the ground. Well, I go and I help them picking it up. And I say, I'm so sorry that they left. I don't know what's going on with them. And they said to me, thank you for making a difference. Oh, that hit me right between the eyes. Some of you, when I have questions in my mind, wondering if I make a difference or did this land, one of you will reach out and answer that question. You're just psychic. You're playing part in this big conversation. Just because I'm on this side of the microphone and you're on the other side doesn't mean we don't have a connection. I operate from the point of view that we have a connection. We are kindred spirits. When I say my friend, I really consider you my friend. That's the energy that I put behind this. Now, to expand on these little synchronicities, when they show up, one thing that you don't want to do is say, that's so weird. I was thinking this question, I've had this topic on my mind, and this came about. This person showed up in my life, or they called me. Don't make it weird. Don't make it, out of the ordinary. Of course they'd call. Of course run into them. That's the way the universe works. When you're aligned, when you're in touch, in tune, open to receive, you're going to have an answer. Things are going to show up to support you. Now, there is this idea that all synchronicity is good, is wonderful, feels like it's answering a question. Well, there's been times in my life, I can remember when I was at the airport parking lot and I had a card key to get out of the employee parking lot. But on this night, snowy, cold, I couldn't find my card key. I had no idea where it was. And in order to get out underneath the barrier, I had to kind of raise the barrier up. I had a blanket in the back. I had to scoot under. It took me like 15, 20 minutes to get out. I was one of the last people to get out of the parking lot. There was no one to help, no one to open the gate for me. Well, it takes me 20 minutes to get out, and I kind of bend the barrier bar, and then I find the card key was on the floor all along, but it wasn't, because I looked there. I had the lights on. It wasn't there earlier. I don't know. But this is the thing. In that moment, I knew that I was avoiding something. It was an intervention. I was delayed to a point where I was missing something. I didn't know what, but I was missing something. Well, on the way home, I came upon a 3-car accident, and I figured, considering how fresh the scene was, had I had my card key in my possession and left the parking lot at the time I first came up to the gate, I think I might have been involved in that accident. And since then, I've had no less than a half a dozen similar experiences where I've been inexplicably delayed, and I just know that the universe is looking out for me. I'm avoiding some other scenario, or the universe is conspiring on my behalf to line things up, to make sure there's a synchronous event that I'm present for. It reminds me when I flew out to Denver, Colorado for an NLP conference back in 1991. Well, I arrived about 11:30, and a friend of mine was coming in from Florida at 1 o'clock, and I told her I'd wait for her, and then we'd take a taxi together. She said, "Don't worry about the taxi. We're going to rent a car. I have access to a rental car." I said, "Perfect." So I waited for her, and then her flight was delayed for a bit, and then she couldn't get her bag immediately. And we went to the shuttle for the Hertz rent-a-car, got on the shuttle, and right across from where we sat was 2 friends of mine, Larry and Carol Turner. I had known them from back in Michigan. And when you think about the synchronicity of everything that had to happen, all the different events that had to line up, the delays, and it was meant to be. Because had my friend's plane arrived on time, we would not have met them. We would have not have seen them. Had I gone ahead without her, because she suggested, I'm coming in at 1 o'clock. If you want to wait, we'll go together. Perfect. Had she not suggested that, we would not have met. We would not have rendezvoused. They were there to look at property. They were thinking about relocating to Colorado because they liked the energy. Larry was one of the first people that helped open up my spirituality. He had a metaphysical bookstore, and so they wanted to move to a community with kindred spirits. They ended up not moving to Colorado, as far as I know. But the fact that we met them there at the airport on the Hertz shuttle, I thought was pretty significant. So delays are not denials. It's just setting up something more magnificent for you. So if you're a person that tends to be impatient, just go with it. Go with the flow and understand that everything's working out for you. The universe has your back. Another story pops in my mind when I wanted to take a trip, intuitive trip. I was going with no agenda. I was going to end up in Sedona, Arizona, and I knew that I was going to fly into Vegas. I always wanted to go to Vegas, or at least experience it for a minute. And then I was going to drive down and go into Arizona and drive across Flagstaff and go down to Sedona. So I was leaning on my intuition. The internet was relatively new at the time, and I was able to book my flight online. And I was flabbergasted when it only cost me $88. One-way flight, $88. Now, when I showed up to the airport, I realized that something's different here. Everyone seemed to know each other at the gate. And a tour operator said, "You're the one, right?" And I said, "I don't know. Am I the one?" He said, "Are you part of the tour?" I said, "No." "Well, you weren't supposed to get that ticket." "What do you mean?" And I had no problem buying it. "I don't know how that happened, but you are not supposed to be able to do that." But I said, "Is that going to cause you a problem?" She said, "No, actually, that seat's actually available. It was unbooked." But my company booked the entire plane, the entire flight. So there's no way that seat should have been available. I said, "Well, isn't that interesting?" And she said, "You can't come back with this." I said, "That's okay. I just need to get out there." In my mind, I thought, I'll figure out how to get back when I need to get back. Well, I rent a car at the airport. I drive up to the top of the strip. I want to drive down the main drag in Vegas. And what's interesting is that the sensation that I got was, you don't want to spend any time here. I was thinking I might spend a day or two, but it's like, get out of here. This is not in alignment with your journey. I said, okay. I drove all the way down past the Lexus, and there was a little motor inn at the end. Got a room there. I slept till about 10 o'clock in the morning. I was up quite late. But once I got up, I could not leave fast enough. As I'm going out of town, down towards Henderson, where the Hoover Dam is, I drove past a Little Caesar. So I got myself a pizza to eat on the way and a Diet Coke. That was a time when I would drink Diet Coke, and I'm not proud to say it anymore, but I got a bottle of Diet Coke. Well, I'm eating slices of pizza as I'm driving, going uptown, and I'm going down in elevation. Didn't realize it, didn't think about it. Well, I hadn't yet opened my Diet Coke yet. Started getting thirsty. I had the steering wheel between my knees, steering with my knees, and I opened the Diet Coke. Well, it sprayed all over because where I was in relationship to where the soda was bottled, the pressure was greater inside the bottle, and it sprayed all over me. And I'm like, oh, gosh. So as soon as I can, I pull off the road, and I have to pull off to the other side of the highway. There was a turn across another lane into a casino. It was a casino on the hill just outside of Henderson. Well, I get my suitcase out, and I get a change of clothes. I go inside into the bathroom, and I change my clothes. On my way out, suddenly, I get the urge to put a nickel in the nickel slot machine. I pulled the arm down, and I won, just like that. I won $200. Can you imagine? I won $200 right there, just by stopping because, this bottle exploded in my lap. I took all the nickels that came out of that machine, and I took them and cashed them in. Well, leaving the casino, I had to go out and cross one highway to get to the other highway, and I boarded an on-ramp. Well, I had to get up to speed, and I was driving 75 miles an hour when I slowed down and pulled into the casino. Well, these two trucks come up right behind me, and I'm in the middle lane, and they're blocking my view. And we're driving right along. I pull up to speed for them. Suddenly, something happens, and they slow down, and I shoot, straight ahead down the road. Then I get pulled over by a cop. I didn't see because the two semi-trucks, the two lorries, the two semi-trucks were on either side of me, blocking my view. I did not see the speed limit change. Well, there was a cop. Evidently, there's a lot of people that don't see it, but there was a cop that pulled me over almost immediately. He pulled me over for doing 75 in a 45. That's 30 miles over the speed limit. Where I was from, they would take your license. They could throw you in jail. It was a felony. I was like pleading with the guy, like, oh, I can't get this ticket. That's 30 over. I didn't see the signs. Honestly, I didn't. I would not speed like that. I didn't do it on purpose. I was actually very worried that I was going to lose my job, lose my license. See, I had a commercial driver's license, and driving that fast over the speed limit is a felony. They could take my license. I would lose my job. Because at the time, I was a courier for FedEx. I needed that commercial driver's license. And I told him that. I said, I cannot afford to lose my job over this. He said, don't worry. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I said, seriously? He said, just pay the fine. I said, that's all I have to do? Just admit guilt, pay the fine. You don't even have to be here for the hearing. You can do it through the mail. I said, do you have any idea how much the ticket is? He said, yes, it's $200. Well, I had just won $200 at the casino. Well, he wrote the ticket and came back and gave it to me and just tapped the side of my door and said, watch the signs. I said, what? He said, watch the signs. They're all around. Keep your eyes out. As he began to turn to go back to his car, he stopped and then looked back at me and said with a smile, be careful pulling back into traffic. Have a nice trip. And I'm like, watch the signs. Watch the signs. So that was the cue. That was the theme of the whole trip. Watch the signs. Well, I don't want to relay the whole trip because it was nothing more than sign after sign after sign, indicator after indicator, synchronous event after synchronous event. But what I'm saying, though, in recounting the experience with the pop or the soda and the casino, and the universe has your back. And there are no such things as ordinary moments. The universe is always talking to you. There's always information. There's always guidance every step of the way. Most often, we're not listening, or we don't know how to listen. So hopefully in this episode, I've given you some indicators on how to be open to receiving unsolicited information, so to speak. Unsolicited. You didn't actually ask anyone outright, but they're giving you information. I did an episode called 10,000 Whispers, and that's like early on, like within the first 20 episodes of the podcast. Now we're over 400. But that 10,000 Whispers speaks to the idea that the universe is always talking to you. Each and every day, you're exposed to 10,000 whispers that's guiding you in your life, guiding you in your direction, guiding and answering your questions. The big part is learning how to tune in, learning how to trust the communication. Now, I have a course for that, but I learned it on my own. If you want to get there faster, then I suggest you check out the Nexus. Again, you can go to yesdaniel.com and check that out there. But my friend, you have all the resources you need to get through life. You are 100% supported. When you can get that and understand it, that the universe has your back, that God got us all that is, loves you unconditionally, that your higher self is right there guiding you every step of the way. You never ever have to be in a position of doubting yourself. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits of tuning into or being able to access your intuitive guidance. You have a greater degree of certainty about your life, your actions, and the people in your life, your direction in life. Okay? All right. I just got, there's another story I need to tell real quick. And in 2010, there was a period where I took on a role of national director for a youth leadership program. And the interesting thing is during that initial time, now I had been in tune with my intuition to a large degree and I could see around the corner for the most part about everything. And during this time when I took on this role, I could not see how this was going to play out. I couldn't see the result. It was like, all I could see is 2 or 3 steps ahead of myself. Turn right, turn left, return back. It was very limited information. I was really flying by the seat of my pants. It turns out we had a very successful program, and I was intending on being a long-term director of this youth leadership program. I took the kids to India. It was phenomenal. Well, I get back, and through a turn of events, I end up getting fired. The board didn't like me, didn't like my energy. I was too masculine. I was too male. There was 2 females on the board. And one of them made up a whole story about how I was not, honoring the feminine energy. Well, they never had a conversation with me. The decision was made while in my absence, and I just kind of found out about it. And that decision kind of caught me by surprise, which things don't typically catch me by surprise anymore. And I got to thinking, had I known how this was going to play out, I would not have gone through the effort, the energy, the whole summer. It was 5 months. I would not have done that had I known how this was going to turn out. But in hindsight, there was such a period of growth through that experience that I think the universe pulled down the blinders and kind of limited my view so I would go through the motions, go through the action, take the actions, and have the experience, and then just to be canned, just to be let go. I became very aware that there's times when it's to your benefit to not be able to see too far ahead, that there is a lesson that you're going to go through a lesson that you probably would not choose on the front end. Had you known how it was going to turn out, you would have never chosen it. But after having gone through it, you can look back on it and say, wow, that was beneficial. That was a learning event. That was a learning experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my capabilities. I'm happy I went through that. Well, that's it for this episode. Until next time, this is your friend and host, Daniel Danovi, urging you to follow your bliss. Live your life from inner signals. Be inner directed as you engage in the epic adventure.